Good evening, everybody. Good evening in this beautiful city, Dubai. Many people came from long ways and had long trips to come here. I myself, I'm from Germany. Sorry for that. We're talking about futuristic innovations on hospitality development, on hotel developments. All of us, we are more or less building hotels, developing hotels in one way or another. Everyone on this panel here is doing the same. Has a role in developing hotels. It's a pleasure to have so many people here with different disciplines and different calibers also. This is very, very nice to have it. We all face challenges in building hotels and developing hotels. We have challenges on different levels. It's quite complex. One of them, of course, in the moment, a lot of hotels are being built in remote areas, in remote locations. I think this is something we will talk about today. Logistics are massive problems. Sustainability is one of them we have to talk about today. I think the panel here will come up with a lot of innovative ideas and thoughts. And I would like to go to the various topics we have. One of them is hotels delivered faster, cheaper, and greener. Greener is one of the big items we have. And of course, we will talk about the challenges in terms of how do we deal with cost, how do we deal with our clients who have, of course, certain expectations when it comes to business plans and financial yields. The topic 2 will be harnessing innovation along the value chain. How can we take innovation into the hotels? How can we use modern technologies and modern ways of construction and buildability to get hotels done faster and also have the value chain profit of it. And the third topic is future-proofing assets. How can we make our assets future-proof and future let's say compliant, to be compliant with the future, with the challenges that come with the future. These things we're going to discuss today. And my first question to Arnold. I think you've been already introduced, so there's not much reason for me to do another introduction. Arnold, Hospitality Director at King Abdullah Financial District. Tell us, in what ways can hotels be designed? In what ways can they be built to reduce their carbon footprint and promote sustainability? Is there anything you, from a developer's point of view, would ask?
Sure, but as a developer, obviously there is two sides to the answer of that. There is a soft side, obviously. First of all, is to have a vision, and I think in Saudi Arabia we are fortunate to have obviously a government with a very strong vision that I guess you all know about, to show us the way and make sure that we, end of the day, consider as well sustainability in whatever we do. So that's number one. And then after that, you do diligence with the teams that you form, much more than before, and make sure that not only the project managers would be your custodians and guardians all the way, but as well your architects and your interior designers and all. And we are all feeling responsible as a team to do that. So there is this soft element that has to be reflected, obviously, after that on the RFPs and making sure that it is taken seriously into consideration. Moving afterwards, obviously, similarly during the elaboration and construction of the project. So that's the first element that is crucial. Secondly, which is more and more evident and I think understood, is the logistic and the local sourcing, the procurement aspect of the project. More and more, it's understood that we need to try to not only find, but as well maybe mentor or sometimes even educate vendors or local manpower. In Saudi Arabia, we have almost 60% of our manpower capped is already local, which obviously changes a lot. And the same, it needs to happen with all our stakeholders throughout the project. These are the major elements that I think are evolving rapidly, and that we are here as a live example to make it to happen, basically, Stephen.
course, yeah. I mean, that's from a developer's point of view, and I think it's quite interesting what you're saying. And as you say, project managers, designers, that's the key to it, and
Yes.
selecting the consultants in the right way and getting the
Definitely.
RFPs out.
I think Scott as well, but you are using even scientists, I believe, to try to make sure that we are preserving the habitat and the reality of the. So you are more concerned actually than us at CAF with regard to the local. We are more of a city project, but we have a vision. We are going to set the target, in our case, with the LEED certification to be either gold or platinum. We are the only actually global project today who have been, or the first one who was totally LEED certified platinum level as a master plan. So it's not anymore a could we or should we consider. It's a must be compliant. The same way until now we're saying fire life and safety is a must. You cannot negotiate. Now sustainability is one of them as well.
Of course, yeah. Of course, one of the big ones, absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah. But anyway, Scott, you've just been mentioned, and you're head of design at Red Sea Global, and I believe you can talk about the design point of view and where, at what point, construction techniques can be introduced, that make it greener, that make it cheaper, that make it easier to build and probably faster to build, and probably also in a way that you can do a lot of off-site production, and especially on remote projects like you're doing. It is quite interesting to hear from you what kind of technologies you're applying and what you're innovating.
Sure. Well, we have a mandate to design unique, never been seen before projects.
Sure, yeah.
And that means different materials, might be timber, might be stainless steel, and those present certain challenges. A lot of our architects are using complex geometries, double curved elements, and on top of that, as Arnold mentioned, we're developing a very sensitive remote location. And we determined early on that off-site manufacturing was going to be key to how we would develop these sites.
Sure, yeah.
And so we've tried to shift from a majority on-site process to majority off-site. And I think we've been quite successful in doing that. And it's ranged from PPVC, full prefabricated, pre-finished volumetric construction, to flat pack, to precast. So we've sort of explored the whole range. Now, Kristina and I are fortunate enough to be working on a Kingo Kuma design. And for anybody that doesn't know, he's a very famous Japanese architect, and he works in timber. He did the Tokyo Olympic Stadium. And so designed a beautiful St. Regis resort, a lot of timber, curved geometry. And so we ended up bringing that in from Switzerland. It was all the timber was manufactured there, was packed, it was numbered, and it was shipped to our site. They sent a team over to help the local trade contractor to really train their team on how to assemble it. So it really was kind of a kit of parts, and it ended up being 10,000 cubic meters of timber that came in 800 containers.
Okay.
But it allowed us to go faster because we started early. We were still doing land development and preparation while this was all under manufacture. So we got, the advantage of lead time and procurement. It was more sustainable because we eliminated a lot of waste. Approximately 30% of waste on the timber. And then of course it's green because we're reducing the footfall on the site, a lot less labor. So it was critical to our strategy for developing that particular hotel.
Okay, so that timber comes how? That's like CLT, like a composite laminate, or how does it come?
It does, they can mill it from glulam or from a solid piece, but it's quite sophisticated. They're taking the vector geometry from the architects. They have their own process that they go through with other tools. So digital collaboration is a big part of it. But once they program it into their milling machines, you're getting millimeter tolerance.
Of course, yeah.
And so when it comes to the site, it does fit. It's this idea that you literally do not need tape measures after the base plates go in. And it is a kit of parts that you assemble on site.
I'm a carpenter originally, so I love timber, and I love that technology is beautiful. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Right.
So, but what about cost then? How does it work in terms of cost effectivity? In terms of, I mean, if you do these kind of things, you bring materials from Switzerland, for instance, let them produce in Switzerland. How does it work on the overall cost of the project and the budget? I mean, how would that affect it?
Right. Well, look, it depends on the project, and so in some cases we're sourcing in Europe. In some cases it's regional. In some cases it's on our own site. So we've got a precast factory set up on our site.
All right.
We're working here in the UAE with Grandcraft on with stainless steel fabrication. So it's not we're not limited to any particular geographic region. It just depends on what we're working with and who's able to do it. And in the case of our project called Shebara, where we're doing these solid stainless steel mirror finish orbs, there were only a couple of fabricators globally that could do this.
Sure.
And so one of those was here, and that was a case where we actually did PPVC, and we're fully fitting these out and then shipping them to the site and craning them in place. So it saves us, definitely saves us on time and the logistics. I mean, you can imagine if we were trying to do all of this work on the site itself, it would quite frankly be impossible with some.
So you're doing a lot offsite production, and,
yes.
and more you're shifting to that direction. How about materials, Kristina? Now we've been talking about the bricklaying and timber and all that, but when it comes to interior design, what about you? I mean, what kind of materials are you choosing when it comes to greener, faster, more sustainable, and cost-effective also?
Always cost-effective. I think that's the word. And just to go on with what Scott was saying, I mean, we hadn't actually worked on off-site manufacturing type interior design, and that was really a challenge for us as well, because you have to start to think of how things are joined, how it's actually been placed on site, is it actually going to be finished on site? So that was a challenging project as well, and working with timber, how that works, how the tolerances are also for these things. But yeah, that was a really lovely project, and we really look forward to seeing that complete. But right now we're working on some really interesting projects where the innovation of materials and sustainable materials comes from plant-based sources, and we're working on a project. It's in a date farm, and what I'm really loving about it is really looking at the type of materials, what can be made from pineapples or rice. There's actually tiles for a bathroom made out of rice, and all these sorts of off-cut materials. There's a whole variety of terrazzos as well, and things with wood chips and so forth. So that whole circular economy of taking off a lot of waste, and you can actually start to manufacture with that. So these are sort of materials we're starting to explore on some of our projects, but it's not for every project. Still, some of these products don't look 5-star, but they can actually be used as a base for building blocks and so forth. Types of mushroom mycelium blocks are being used for construction, for acoustics, and so forth. So I'm kind of loving looking at this alternative type of product for a particular project, but still we're looking and sourcing products everywhere, because I think the local industries aren't as well developed yet. There are some locations here in the Middle East that are a little bit more on the forefront. You know, Egypt is an amazing source. If people really look at Egypt, they manufacture not just carpets, but fabric. Some of the biggest fabric manufacturers are there, and we're working with them, you know, to support some of the projects. But local manufacture, like what we were working on in Saudi Arabia, there's a few people there, but everyone wants to be part of that project source, but we're not finding everything we need from a materials point of view.
We'll be interested to find out where this project is with the plant-based materials. You know, I mean, pineapple and rice tiles and all that would be quite interesting to see.
Yeah,
durability of it. I'd like to understand how that works.
Yeah.
You know,
Actually, there was also another product we were looking at, and it was made from denim, scraps of denim. You know, it's amazing what can be done. I mean, the whole recycling of materials is an interesting process, but
Good.
yeah, let's hope we can do
And your
that.
client, I mean, your client is asking you to do that, or are you telling the client to use it?
Actually, we're telling the client, you know, we have to be responsible.
Right.
We're here doing this really unique project, and we should give it some extra sort of sustainable goals to
And
it.
where do you stand in terms of cost on it?
At the
in
moment, they're
comparison?
looking at that to be sort of off-site, also manufacturing. I think we're going to be on budget in terms of their budget, but sometimes I wonder where they actually determine their budgets, you know.
But if you compare to other conventional construction and conventional built hotels, where would that stand? And if you
I would say it's pretty well similar,
All right.
actually.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's more expensive. The only thing I think with some of these new innovative materials is the test of time. You know, what you just mentioned, how long can they actually last and survive? There hasn't been a lot of tried and tested materials over a certain period, and especially in the weather. You know, we have to think about that as well.
Of course, yeah.
So
Of course.
there's a lot of things there, but I think if the client's sort of also willing to do something like that, I think it's a good...
I remember we've been developing a project on the seaside and in a very difficult situation, and that was very, very challenging in terms of material and all that. So I believe with natural materials such as, again, pineapple or rice, you know, I think you would face challenges, but anyway, if you can handle it, it's great.
Yeah,
fantastic.
no, it's great. I mean, I think, you know, we always work on these seaside projects, and we always specify, you know, 316 metal, and then someone, for some reason, that, you know, whatever it is, that light fitting is no longer, and you'll notice in 2-3 months, you know, when it starts to rust.
Ajay, light fittings. I mean, you're from Schneider Electric. You would talk probably. No, I mean, we're not talking about light fittings right now, but I mean, we're talking about electrics, you know, especially in remote locations, in remote projects, you know, where climate situations are as they are here in this part of the world, harsh and heavy. Temperatures are up and down. And how do you work on it? And what kind of innovative systems are you applying and developing? And what are you bringing into this market?
So the latest on that is the microgrid, which does the off-site, on-site, so you can have different kind of energy sources coming in, whether it's solar, geothermal, all of that, right? And if it can operate in an island format, or it can be obviously coming from the grid. And then it can also be resilient enough that if there is a catastrophe in case, it can go in an island mode and work on by itself. So the microgrid solutions, which is coming in, which is also bringing in the greener aspect to it as such, right? So a lot of helping on the offset of the carbon footprints. So that's where I think the microgrid plays a big role. And obviously around the EVs and everything else coming in as such. So in short, the way we are looking at it is microgrids, right? And bringing distributed energy sources. And at the same time, in different parts of the world, we are looking also as prosumers. So in case you are generating more at the site, you can then provide it to the grid or to the local community, right? So that's the technology that's coming in there. Okay. Yeah, but I wanted to just touch base on what Scott was saying around the innovation. And what I personally feel, and as a Schneider, we see that the conventional construction is very linear, right, as on date, and that's 90% of it. So barring what, Scott, you are doing, And I think so that's the best approach of, where we try to bring in the right partners early in the stages, right? We have a vision. We decide who are the right people, right partners, right, bringing in, rather than going in a design where we start with owners, developers, architects coming in, and then finally consultants and contractors. So by the end of the time, you don't get what you envisaged, what your vision was. And I think so the construction industry needs a step change on that, and it requires more intent in doing that. So it's more about strategizing earlier upfront for the vision, onboarding people who are with your vision, and then going and delivering that vision. And that's also the best way to make it greener, because you can strategize, you can digitize, and you can decarbonize. And there is the technology that can, on the technology front, so that was on the stakeholder fronts, but on the technology front, you can have something which you do a design, which can be digitized, bringing into the build stages, and then building into the operate stages, right? So that everything is current, and we can go talk about digital twins and everything else, but the technology is there to support anything which is out of the normal conventional construction, right? And I think so more and more, if we take that approach, we could build greener, faster, and cheaper for sure. And cheaper in a sense because you don't need to build everything. For example, the project that is, there could be so much of it in terms of supply chain, in terms of material, and that can be reused, right? So you have a head start every time you do it. You don't need to start from the scratch. So
it's all about strategy in the end.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that the strategy is being set right in the very beginning.
Exactly.
And it's a complex situation and a complex development of a strategy. And I think, Arnold, again, coming back to you as a developer, that's where it starts, right? You have to set the tone, you have to set the strategy, you have to build it up, right?
Totally, yeah. As he's saying, it's a matter of anticipating, number one, setting the rules, setting the KPIs even of your contractors or consultants from the beginning, so they are aware that they will be as well assessed on their performance on the terms of sustainability. So that's essential. And keep this in mind throughout the whole project. We are here with enough information today, people are aware, people take it seriously. There was a wrong thinking for many years, right, that a sustainable hotel will cost 10-15% more, which is proven to be wrong. This is what I call sustainable engineering. I mean, we have proven solutions, and you have been studying, and you found a solution. If somebody 10 years ago had thought of it, it would be scared that it would cost maybe 10-15% more. So we have to break this wrong perception and go for a paradigm of encouraging the consultants and to hire people who are truly informed, and not to say I've got a 2 weeks course on sustainability or have a LEED certification, but they are truly bringing intelligence and added value to the design, and after that obviously to the construction phase.
So the strategy is one thing, but later on, during the construction, during development, you have the value engineering hammer that comes at one point, So from a developer's point of view, how do you see it? Because in the end, we as project managers, designers, and whatever, we need to make our investors happy in the end, So how do you see?
Honestly, I don't see the challenge very much with the cost. As long as it is a constant. I mean, do you keep in mind this aspect of keeping sustainability without spending more money? If you start from the inception stage doing that, I mean, I've never been in a project where we have been out of budget because of sustainable issues. We were discussing just earlier about how to maybe improve the GRMS in the future in the hotel rooms to make sure that they are not, again, a burden for the project, and at the same time satisfying the minimum but sustainable needs. And I think there is a balance now that we start to see, which is healthy, and this is what I think the future is about. To be reasonable and bring the intelligence to find solutions, and not only to assess or give wrong perceptions, basically.
Sure. Okay, that's interesting to that element. Of course, we can talk a lot about sustainability and all that, but again,
we have to.
I think we had one more point, Arno, which I would like to ask you, and that's a complete different subject, disabilities and
ADAs,
accessibility, ADS, exactly. How do you I mean, the question is, how can you make sure, you know, that guests would have better access to hotels? How can you, what would you need as a developer to make that happen?
Yeah, so both are related to sustainability and I think to how much you care. I think it's all about that in the end. More and more our population are aware that accessibility for all is a necessity, not only, by the way, for people with true disabilities, but as well for our generation with our today elderly, and we need to have more and more facilitations. So we again in Saudi Arabia are taking this very seriously now. We have, as part of PIF, very strong support to make sure that we will be exemplary, not only at CAF, but in the Giga project, taking the hotels as benchmarks and pilot projects, not only in the rooms, public areas, and not only for the front of the house, but as well for all the partners, all the employees that are working for us, giving them the facilities, employing some of the labor as well, or the workers in the hotel later on with disabilities, and trying to ask even the operators to consider that as part of the hotel management agreement. And a lot can be done. We have had a lot of people with hearing disabilities, which can do a lot of work and tasks. Even in South Africa, I had up to 15% of the labor force with disabilities. And it's not for the sake of trying to look good, but it's really, I think, a new evolution that I think the society appreciate and will consider when they do the selection in the end of your hotel or your project.
Mm. What about, Scott, anything to that element, accessibility in your hotels and Red Sea?
Well, if you asked, what do you need as a developer? And in my view, one of the key pieces is BIM. The ability to walk through a project and look at it from both a guest point of view, guest accessibility, and staff accessibility.
Sure, yeah.
And we had this debate recently in our office as to whether we had really mapped out the staff journey, and if you hire somebody that has a disability, are they able to follow the route with everybody else through the back of house and so on? And so I think we're trying to look at it very holistically, and we're using technology to help us do that.
All right. Okay. Waste is another subject, and I'm coming again to you because I mean you are developing projects in remote areas, and how do you deal with waste? How is waste? What's your strategies, and what are the new concepts in terms of waste management and waste treatment, and what happens when it goes out of the hotel? Where does it go?
Right.
Yeah.
So we started off with a temporary facility to manage construction waste, to sort recyclables, biodegradables, and then we're converting that over to a permanent part of our PPP agreement, and it's really we're set up to handle as an integrated resort development about 12,000 tons of waste, and so we have an advantage. Being a large destination, that we're able to centralize that, bring the waste from hotels to a sorting facility where we can separate recyclables, manage those differently, take biodegradables, use it for mulch, landscape purposes, etc., and then really trying to minimize what actually has to be dealt with in some other way, incineration or otherwise.
Kristina, partnerships with stakeholders, with any kind of suppliers, customers, how do you see what do they play for? What kind of role do they play? Well, how do they help you in terms of developing hotels and developing your interior design? Mm-hmm. And what do you think can be done on that level to probably improve the process?
I think everyone here would love to be partnering up with the gentleman on the panel, actually, in every which way. I mean, in terms of suppliers, I think for us, when we start a project, it's really important to understand a location and really get down to the nitty-gritty of sort of meeting people in a particular location, understanding their stories, their culture, and so forth. So, you know, getting to know people within a location is really important to be able to set the type of project design strategy. But I think more and more there's a lot of opportunity with more local communities to be doing things. I still think, for instance, if we look at Saudi, it's still in its infancy. There's a lot more manufacturing happening here in Dubai, which is really phenomenal, whether it's even manufacturing of carpet and glass and these sorts of materials. So I think there's definitely a scope for so much more, particularly in Saudi Arabia. But I think some of the raw materials are still sourced from locations in Europe, and I don't think we're going to sort of move away from that for some time still. I know there's a lot of suppliers here wanting to start manufacturing facilities in Saudi to be part of that, but that still takes time and to develop this as well. But I think local communities and suppliers, I think looking at sources locally wherever they can from a sustainability angle is the way to go. And I think it's the future of some of these larger developments that we see. But it's not always, you know, we talked about logistics and we talked about sustainability on the course of a project. And one of the things that we've noticed is, you know, for all good intentions, we really work very hard to get this LEED certification on a project. We really work hard to look at materials, how we design everything, and then somewhere down the line the contractor gets involved or the timeline gets shortened, and all of a sudden some of the materials and those good intentions get washed away and lost, and then it's a little bit sad to see that, but because of other realities of the project, and it's not always cost. So maybe, Arnold, I love to work on your projects because you just said that there is no issue with respect to budget, so I'm knocking on your door next.
Yeah.
I think we're here to solve the issue that if it is, I think, part of the consciousness of the team, it's manageable like any other issue.
Yes.
Why we could solve FLS issues for evacuation routes or whatever, we could have an issue in facing sustainability problems. No, it's manageable. And it's the time of only doing value engineering, and what is value engineering today is not the same as what it was before, right?
Well, value engineering is cost-cutting very often, let's be clear about
Yes.
that. 15 years ago, value engineering, okay, take off half of the light features, forget about the landscaping, and then we'll solve the budget,
Yes.
right? This is over, all right? You need to be able to understand the pros and cons on every aspect and be an expert in assembling that. That's what the automobile sector has shown us. That's what the airline sector has shown us. And now the hospitality is doing it as well. Before, I mean, I remember even here in UAE, we did the first bathroom pods on Yas Island here. And I did 2 hotels there. We didn't save a single day. We spent 15% more on that bathroom actually at that time because we didn't have the expertise to make sure that there is one guy who is only there to make sure that the orchestra is playing the music at the same time and that the things are coming at the right time and that it makes sense. Now we find people who can have this expertise of managing, micromanaging, and following as a guardian all the way what we agreed in the beginning. So we set some parameters, and every month we don't only talk about the budget or the project, we talk about where do we stand with this selection and why is this one, why is it local versus something that could be done somewhere else. Sure. Where is it, who is doing it, who is he, and where is his labor from, etc. It's not difficult. It's just to think and continue to get the habits of thinking this way, I would say.
It's all down to the strategy again,
yes.
right? To the very early strategy of the project.
And I just want to add here, and what could push that is also regulations and mandates coming on that.
To come to that.
Yes, so that's where I think so there are 2 folds to it. One is creating the push through, carbon taxations or rebates or incentives, or trying to have certain kinds of consultants or contractors who have shown this in past, who have their own sustainability goals, right? And hiring them, being there as a partner. And that will drive the construction in the right direction. The second aspect is to scale it. So on the scaling part, I think so comes the technology which can help, as I said, that you don't need to restart every time, right? You could have a lot of it. And the linear thing is having everything from the design side moving to the build and to operate, right? So that you can do all the strategy, you can again do the your digitization and decarbonization. So I think so mandate plays a lot part of it. And the digital part is of the technology enabling you to start there. But the fundamental before that even comes that there aren't any standard metrics. So we know we have leads and everything else, but around sustainability, how you show your carbon footprints, right? What is the embodied carbon inside the construction phase of it? There isn't, and that's where I think so as a community, as an industry, we need to come from owners, from the government together to lay that ground rule saying this is how you have to showcase, this is what you will be measured on, this is what you'll be taxed on, rebate and incentive, to create that push where, you know, you don't get value engineered so fast. You know, stopping that value engineering should come.
Of course, yeah. So policy makers and regulatory bodies, and they would play a big role, obviously, yeah?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the advantage we have in this part of the world, right? That in Europe, it would take 10 years to get some mandatory laws about, I mean, look at only the ADA compliance, how long it took to get it. But here, it's a matter of days, and decisions are made, and we are here to catch up, actually, and make it happen. Of course, the same for trash management. I mean, we have an INVAC here in CAFT with a system from Europe, so bit, but it was decided immediately, and it was implemented, and then that's the way it is.
Yes.
I think we play a role very often in the hotel industry as ambassadors for all these good initiatives on the social aspect, on the sustainability aspect, and I think we take it seriously. And I think we can influence as a lobby in this industry a lot of authorities to follow and behave better, really.
Yeah. No. One more thing, Ajay, future-proofing assets. I think that's a question to you, because I mean you're taking care of electronics, you're taking care of all the control mechanisms and control systems in hotels. And if we talk about new hotels, yes, on one hand, you know, but on the other hand, also we talk about a lot of refurbishment that is happening, not only here in UAE. I mean, in Saudi Arabia as well. There's lots of hotels which are in a very, you know, bad state. Now, how do you, what do you suggest, you know, to take such hotels on and develop them in such a way that they are future-proof?
Okay, so that's a tricky one, because future-proofing is in terms of where the technology disruption is happening every day. So future-proofing could be something challenging. But I'll answer you, and that's a good point you bring in, because, and I think so in morning we mentioned that 63% of the buildings which will exist in 2050 is already built, right?
Yes,
they're already
exactly,
existing,
yeah.
right? And the challenge, I think, is with them, is that they have been built on technologies which have either been proprietary or been running in silos. And that's where, again, I come. So for the greenfield, we need to make sure when we're starting up front, we're building a skeleton which is on a platform which is more open, more interoperable. People can come and add in whatever new technology is coming in that can be built on the platform, right? But the challenge for already existing is furthermore. And I think so where they need to look into, if they are looking for a net zero or carbon neutral, is go and first have a strategy of understanding where they are today, where they want to be, and then gradually modular way move from one aspect to the other. They cannot be there just in next 5 years or 10 years. So they need to have a granular plan of achieving that. And in terms of technology, I think so where it can help is to start with what exists as in most open, and there are standards which have been there in the industry, like, you know, BACnet or Modbus, and there are new ones coming in. So the technology which are open, which have been tested, right? And there is a lot of work together being as a standards being created around those technologies. Are the ones we should go for, right? And then making sure that as and when new technologies come, they just hop onto it. Fundamentally, if I put it across, it's two things. You are looking to make sure that you get the data across your assets inside the building. So whether it's chillers, boilers, whatever, you can get access to that data. and the technology should be able to talk, and the data should be able to move. Those are two fundamental things. If you're achieving, you can future-proof your asset as it is. Because ultimately, it's the data that you'll take, whether it's AI coming in, VR coming in, AR coming in, it will take the data, analyze it, and create control functionality. And if you are interoperable, you can then functionally do everything.
Of course, yeah.
And that's what I think. So it's open, right? You need to, and it should be interoperable. That's the platform that you're looking for.
So we're all passionate about building hotels. We're all in different fields passionate about building hotels and happy to do that also. We're happy to serve our investors and clients, of course, because in the end we want to make them happy and want to make sure that they all make the money that they want to make and and should make also. So I think that's one thing, but of course we shouldn't forget the guests. The guests are the ones who have the experience, who want to experience the hotels. We have to make them happy as well. And I think, Kristina, I have one thing for you, a little one for you, which is actually the artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And I think you have a beautiful example for that one, which you would like to have, please.
Yeah.
as an
end, right?
closure
Okay.
of this.
Yeah, just with AI, I think there's a lot more AI technology and so forth coming in wellness and particularly bathroom design. And I think it's much more prevalent. But I was just joking with Stephan the other day. We love all this technology, but I would love to have the mirror on the wall, tell me how beautiful I look in the mornings or not, but when that actually happens one day, I think that would be kind of amazing. But the technology nowadays is phenomenal, and
Absolutely.
what's the best thing about it, it's seamless. We just now expect things to happen all the time. But I'm not sure the technology is that advanced yet, but maybe soon. Who knows?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to every one of you. I think we had a lovely session here. It's a good panel and great people here. Again, as I say, we're all passionate about hotels, and I think anyone here in this room is. And yes, let's get on with it, And of course, sustainability, strategy, these are the big things, we have to look after. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.